put the F back in wrestling.
Elbow drops and lariats from the top rope. You can't cope. The Effin' Wrestling Podcast in the house. Now that's dope. Starcade and SummerSlam all rolled into one. Drop kick, sleeper holes. 1, 2, 3, done. Whole mics like Mean Gene or Gordon Soley. I'm Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with that Crockett trophy. So listen closely as we approach the final hour in an instant. Hands raised, crowds phase without the time limit. Effin' Wrestling Podcast with that ultimate finish. Suplex, now you end it. Yes, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? It's Effin' Wrestling. I'm JR. That's Chase. And we got a special guest joining us here today. We got Hank Toller from the show Penny Stinkers joining us today. Hank, what's up, buddy?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Welcome to the show, good sir. Thank you for being our guest.
It's good to be here. I'm a fan.
Oh, thanks, man. We appreciate it for sure, man.
See,
So,
I told you, we have fans out there. People
hey, we're cool.
like
man.
what we're doing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Let's keep doing it for a little while then.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, what's stopping us? Only, there's just a pandemic going on. There's nothing really like stopping us from doing this all the time.
Right.
Well, if anything, it's given us a better excuse to sit around and talk about wrestling.
Oh, there you go. Nothing else better to do. Right?
Exactly.
But Hank, so I mentioned Hank is joining us. He's a part of the Penny Stinkers podcast. Hank, tell us a little bit about that, brother.
Penny Stinkers is a podcast that I guess co-host would be the word, with a good friend and dear friend and co-worker to you both, John Parson.
Yeah.
Shout out to John Bear down there in Alabama.
Yep.
And we're old buddies who go way back, as Chase and I are, and obviously, I've met JR through Chase, and here we all are. But John and I have our own little podcast called Penny Stinkers. We talk about movies and stuff, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, you can find it anywhere that podcasts are available. We're on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcast Download. You can find us.
Hell yeah.
And now, we all follow each other's podcast, and now here we are. Not to jump the gun on a certain theme of the day, but certain doors are opening in this podcast little world of ours.
Look at that. Look at
See what he did there?
so professional with that segue.
I didn't have that written down on my palm so that I wouldn't screw up the words.
We're like 17 episodes in, and we're still just kind of like just trying to have a jump cut from like this time next week on Effin' Wrestling.
I got you. I'm all about the segues.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
segues and me are like hot tags, people.
There you go. Hot tag with Hank, hopefully coming up one day. That's a little,
little
future tease coming up.
Future segment with
we're just gonna be planting seeds for the next hour and a half.
Call it Johnny Appleseed, baby.
We're just getting ready for harvest, man.
Speaking, go ahead, Chase. Go ahead, introduce what we're gonna talk about.
So this is near and dear to me, man, and I know it's near and dear to you, JR, because you are an old school wrestling fan. You are a Territory Day wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, my friends, we are facing what might be the golden age of wrestling. Everyone would say that would probably be like the Attitude Era, but it's not. We're in this heyday where it doesn't matter where you're signed to. You can hop anywhere outside of this island Earth that is WWE.
Right.
I mean, you have AEW stars on Impact stars on New Japan stars showing up on Impact stars showing up on AEW. You have AAA's world title and cruiserweight title on wrestlers signed with AEW and MLW.
Right.
It's this weird opportunity where we're seeing. It's almost like the MCU of wrestling right now.
Right.
And it's insane. It's something no one ever thought would happen. And as Hank said, this door is being kicked open as one podcast to another by this all thought uncharted territory of New Japan Wrestling working with any American federation. And now it just seems now that they're having more of an American sway. I know their Roku channel is starting pretty soon.
It's already started. They're already started on Roku.
Yeah, because they might just read today or yesterday that New Japan turned down the access deal that Impact runs on in favor of Roku.
Wow.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
just read. Yeah, unless that's news, but
Wow.
I did just read that they turned down the Access TV deal in favor of Roku.
That's
That's
awesome.
impressive.
Which I mean, I don't know the semantics of those networks in between networks, if you will, but I would think that Roku, by and large, is a much more internationally known product. I would
Right.
assume.
I would assume so also. And it's easier access to it over
Yeah,
access. Huh?
yeah. How many people's living rooms did you at least used to go into and be like, "Hey, man, you got access? What? You got Roku? Oh yeah, yeah,
Definitely.
Hey
yeah.
man,
Okay, we're
100%.
good.
I got a Roto television right in front of me,
Yeah,
and
Exactly.
the moment this is done, I'm gonna go hunt down that New Japan channel
Right.
because Jerry, long before effing wrestling was a thing, you and I would talk about wrestling nonstop, and I would just
Mhm.
fawn over the matches I would see in New Japan.
Yeah, you always like New Japan, the way you would talk about it and everything just drew my attention and drew my curiosity and made me dive into it a little bit and ended up
Well,
loving what I've seen.
well, I'll
Loving
say
what
this:
I've seen.
Hank is the one who turned me onto it.
Right.
He's the one who told
So
me.
tell y'all story for the people listening. Tell your story so everybody will know.
well, me and Chase met when we were 8 years old. And, wait, that's way too far back. Yeah, no, from the wrestling standpoint, I mean, I don't know. Jumping onto a
Hank's-
wrestling channel. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, as
Yeah,
we both were. Chase and I have known each other since childhood. We're
Mhm.
friends. We're roommates. We're recording right now from opposite ends at the same house.
hey,
But
hey,
yeah.
Hank.
I was like any other kid who grew up in North Carolina. I'm an 87 baby. So, you know, I'm there for getting to come up in the glory days uh, of pro wrestling in general at its height in the late 90s into the early 2000s. But again, being a Carolina kid, I grew up with a very strong influence around Mid-South NWA, which became, of course, WCW Crockett, WCW Ted Turner, as we know it.
Yep.
So that influence was always there. And because of those old VHSs I used to rent, and we would used to rent, like WCW did those crossovers with New Japan and All Japan back in the day.
Yeah.
It was always on my radar growing up, even as I got older to teen to adulthood, all that stuff.
Well, there was that
But-
one game on the PlayStation that was WCW versus the
world. Yeah, and that was like a
Japanese.
plethora of of characters that I wouldn't recognize outside of a handful, even more that I couldn't pronounce their names, still couldn't. But yeah, case in point, like I always knew that you know, New Japan and All Japan are within that sphere of what I'm aware of, but you know, wrestling had after WCW got bought out by WWF, you know, it became, you know, WWF is the only product you're aware of until there's of course like Impact as we know it today. When it was like NWA TNA, then TNA Impact. I'm trying to make a long story short. I'm not aware of New Japan again until the infamous Wrestle Kingdom 11 Okada versus Omega match. Because even when I'm not watching, I still follow like my dirt sheet sites and just like to know what's going on, at least on the indie scene, because of course, like that's rising with Ring of Honor and stuff like that, but I don't have access to it. And then I hear everybody talking about like, hey, so potentially the greatest wrestling match of all time occurred last night. And I watched it knowing absolutely nothing about who Kazuchika Okada or Kenny Omega were. And that's an hour-long match. And I sat there and went, oh my God, this might be the best wrestling match I've ever seen. Right. Immediately watched it again. And then I probably through that second viewing that I was like sending that link because it was available on YouTube. They hadn't even blown up enough that it was so protected like it might be now when you try to catch like highlights or a full match on like say YouTube the day after like Wrestle Kingdom. But I was already sending that out to John Parson and Chase going, guys, apparently this is the greatest wrestling match of all time. I'm watching it for the second time in a row in an hour and a half at this point. I think they might be right.
I was down at
that's when New Japan came on my radar. And then like, you know, like you do when you're a fan of anything, we just started like eating that shit up. Right. About what can we learn about what's been going on. And I filled myself in on the history of what I had missed and didn't know that it kind of coincided with this resurgence of Bullet Club and how New Japan was coming to its new era of prominence again. And yeah, fast forward to now, what as Chase loves to refer to it, and he's not inaccurate when saying we're kind of living in an awesome golden age right now.
I agree, man. Totally agree. And I say it all the time. Like if if you're a wrestling fan and you're just a fan of one wrestling brand and talk shit about all the other, you know what I mean, and just
You're just hurting yourself.
Yeah.
miserable about it, you're just not a good wrestling fan.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
it's-
you're not really caring about what the performers are putting out there. You don't.
Yeah.
You're not really. And there's something for everyone everywhere.
such a buffet. It's a buffet, man. It's crazy.
No, it totally is.
Fill
And
your plate
especially,
with
yeah.
whatever you want, however much you
Yeah,
want.
and the way it coincides with technology today too, the way we consume our media is not, it's not TNT and USA on a Monday night at 8 o'clock anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
we're beyond those years of even like TiVo, as it were. It's like, nah, man, you can pick this up it's in your pocket now with your phone.
Exactly.
You can pick this up wherever you want to go, and now we're seeing. As a wrestling fan, yeah, we just get to reap all the benefits of that, especially because so many of these promotions are starting to trickle into one another right now, and it's
Yeah.
a hell of a lot better than that invasion angle that we got in 01.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's one of those really neat things where you're just seeing. I was telling JR, like it's not even a big deal that Kenta was the first one to cross over from New Japan to AEW, but it's just the fact that someone from New Japan did that with the plot, with the follow through of he has that briefcase that's number one contendership for the United States title. John Moxley, who's just lost the AEW world title. So it just plays into this world building story where they can just hop around where, oh, hey, your top guy doesn't have anything going on right now. Have him take on one of my mid-card guys and really make his program over here while we're building.
Yeah.
And it's this whole thing of like, rising waters help out, raise all ships, or some strange expression that I messed up like that.
I get you. I'm smelling what you stepping in, yo. But
With the
But,
rocks cooking, if I may say.
yeah, I feel you, man. But it's cool because and it's also because I haven't been following New Japan as much as I would like to, of course, because I hadn't had a lot of access to it till recently or whatever. But like it's cool for me because I don't really know much about Kenta. I didn't see the Moxley and Kenta matches. I don't know anything about what's going on with him, but I know he's from New Japan, and I know Moxley has that title and everything. So just the interest alone is amazing and so much damn fun right now.
I know, right? Well, you have even now you have the Good Brothers who are signed to Impact. The Impact Tag Team Champions.
Yeah. Right, but it started. Let's go back to it. Started recent with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, I would say
Thunder Rosa going to
is the initial snap. If she's anything, I'll give Thunder Rosa the credit of going. All right, you're the Nick Fury. You're that first crossover we saw. Like, was that one of the cats?
Hell yeah.
It was.
Yeah, but Thunder Rosa, yo. That was when that first happened. I wasn't really thinking too much about, you know what I mean, the forbidden door, if you will. I wasn't really thinking too much about that happening. I was just thinking more about NWA not really doing much. They're just letting Thunder Rosa do some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the pandemic's going on. No one can really work. I mean, I don't know if what NWA is doing right now.
Right.
I know Power was a thing and it stopped, and they were trying another show. But I don't know. I was with you. I thought, cool, they're not really working.
It wasn't going to be a continuous thing or whatever. You know what I mean?
AEW clearly has a women's division issue right now where they don't have a lot of clear challengers for Shida. So let's bring in like the NWA Women's Champion.
Why not?
But now that championship is like moving around and being contested for on AEW. It's a part of their working universe. It's so neat.
Yeah, and just out of a simple practicality, let alone business sense, which is where a lot of this plays in, if you're so freshly minted the way that NWA Power was, like with their small studio setup, and they were out of Atlanta, weren't they? Weren't they working in Atlanta?
Yep.
And but yeah, to sit there and be affected by a pandemic and then you lose that ability. I mean, it's one thing to do an empty show in an arena like AEW does at Daly's Place, or WWE has been doing out of Florida for the last year. But then there's, arena studio style wrestling, which NWA Power brought back, and to really have nobody in there, it's only in their best interest that, fortunately, you got guys like Tony Khan and AEW sitting there going, look, there's a mutual benefit here. Our women's division is admittedly kind of weak. It's stagnant. let's bring your girl over. That's exposure for her and your brand as a whole, and it helps build up our roster as well. And who the hell would say no to that?
Right.
It
right.
makes too much sense.
And on top of it, and on top of that, Thunder Rosa also she's either the owner or something of what, Mission Pro Wrestling, or it's the All Women's Pro Wrestling League or whatever she has.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude. So on top of that, it's building more eyes for her product also.
Oh, that's
this is incredible, man. And with her starting that, I wanted to give her credit. I want to give her a shout out and her credit.
There's certainly a certain level of it. Using the political analogy, which is, might as well throw up like a cross and hiss at it. Bear with me. There is a trickle down economics to this right now that's working right now, because we're also in like the budding stages of this too. Because at the end of the day, like, you did have NWA has, of course, always been established. They've been around forever with all their regional promotions. Yeah. You had Ring of Honor out there, which obviously gave AEW their start, of course. And then you've got international companies like New Japan across the other side of the world. But in comes AEW with Tony Khan of the Khan family. And not only is that dude head booker, but he's head baker, because that dude's got the bread to spend on all of this. He's got all of the money. Yeah. And that's why he's been able to come in and make such a, no pun intended, impact within the scene so quickly over the last year. And obviously with those inroads that are laid by having the Young Bucks, Cody and Kenny, as as people holding office as well, they have all those doors. They've been in Impact, they've been in Ring of Honor, they've been to New Japan, they've been to WWE, and all the inroads are laid there. So to sit there and have a platform after, it's 2021 now, so WCW went under in 2001. This is 20 years of more or less a wrestling desert where WWE's been the only show in town, and the indies have kind of grown. Media has grown. Pure wrestling fans have found our access to it. But now AEW gets to act as this catalyst because they have the money, they've got the brand, and they're on a network to bring everybody in and start toying with these ideas to try to benefit everyone.
And add on what you're saying, man, I'm not very a big opponent for social media as a whole. I think it's cool to promote effing wrestling on social media.
Right.
Like, share, and subscribe. But I'm just not big on it myself. But you have professional wrestling, but almost being huge thanks to. You have wrestlers who can like tweet and get really and Facebook and follows and things like that, and really build their own brand that way. I follow Warhorse on Facebook and like a lot of his stuff, and that guy makes me laugh, and it makes me just like his character all the more, and really want to see him sign somewhere.
Dude, could you imagine having this access to wrestlers back in the day? Yeah. Like, I would love to have been able to tweet Ricky the Dragon Steamboat back in the day.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, no, the closest we could come to it was fan mail at best. Or maybe, I don't know, there was like a 1-800 number where we had to spend our parents like 35 cents a minute.
Yeah.
You remember back in the Nitro days, they had the 1-800 collect dude who would call in wherever he was in the country, and he was like, "Oh, you can call in and talk to whomever."
You could do a video chat on the early days of AOL at a WWF in your house.
Oh yeah.
One, and it's like Shawn Michaels is there, and he's like looking at a laptop, just hitting it, like doing chopsticks with the fingers, not quite knowing how to work a computer. And went, man,
what's this alien technology in front of me?
Play dumb, Sean? Like what's wrong, man? I mean,
yeah, man, and that's why, again, like with where we're at within a media and technology right now, because wrestlers are in and of themselves, they're performers, they're entertainers, they have to live their brand, and that's part of it. And now to have these tools available to live that brand, to promote that brand. And again, with everything that's going on right now with this quote unquote forbidden door starting to be cracked open a little bit, it works out for everybody, man.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think, and we're building some great stuff right now. Like I said, we've already mentioned that Kenta and John Moxley are building a package, and that's clearly going to go off for the New Japan show.
Right.
It looks like on AEW and Impact that we're building towards the Bucks versus the Good Brothers, which is a really cool, which is a really cool like internal struggle of where does Kenny's Allegiance fall? Is it this new world he's building here, or is it with the elite pretty much?
Right.
And who knows, man? I know, JR, you mentioned when Naito shows up, inevitably.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna do it for me.
That's just gonna be
That's my
that
dude.
amazing moment.
That's the coolest wrestler ever, yo.
Yeah, man. I'm
cool as shit. I can't imagine that. I'm gonna lose my mind when that happens. But so with this happening and everything, where like how far do you see it going, Chase? Like where so right now, so you said, you know, we have the Young Bucks doing their program and everything, the Good Brothers crossing over. We had Private Party crossing over in the Impact also.
That's right.
Challenging the Good Brothers.
Finjuice
Losing to him, of course.
Finjuice showed up on Impact from New Japan.
Yeah.
And had a really good promo with the Good Brothers.
Right.
When because you know how, I mean, I turned you out, and I might get it wrong, they have the Young Lions program in New Japan where you show up and it's just like black trunks, and you earn your stripes as you go up, and you earn your character, and as the audience kind of cheers for you and gets behind you, that kind of shapes who you are. And you just kind of had the Good Brothers who were there before them just talking down to him in such a way, and to have Finjuice call that history out on an Impact show to the Impact champions was just one of those, we're not ignoring history anymore.
Right. And
that was just one of those great things. Like back when so we talked about this. So this is kind of off subject, but it's one of those annoying things, and I'm sorry to do that, but it's WWE's just this island, like you said, Hank. When WCW went over, it was just WWE, and they really just built the walls up and tried to keep the rest of the competition down. You had Impact.
That's how they treat it. That's how they treat it, like it's just them and nobody else.
Made all the worse by the fact that they also controlled all the archives.
Yeah.
WCW and WCW, and of course WCW goes way back. So what happened, you know, we all learned this in history as kids, people. Winners get to rewrite history the way that they want to.
Oh, absolutely. Look what happened to Sting. When Sting showed back up. It was one of those things where Sting had been wrestling for Impact for like, what, 10, 15 years? He was just going, Sting, who's been gone for 20 years. Like he hadn't been doing anything in that whole time. And that's a shame. It's like someone like AJ Styles, who, you know, from reports, Vince had to like be convinced to let him keep AJ Styles. Look what happened to Eli Drake just last week. Now that LA,
come on, man, LA Knight.
I mean, you know what? I was excited to see Eli Drake show up on NXT. You know, he's a traveled veteran. He's world champion material across the board in different federations. He's a great talker. But now that you just went, no, he's not that guy I know. He's this new character. A lot of my interest is gone, not because his skill won't match what he can do. It's just the disrespect is just kind of like.
It's like none of that past shit ever existed.
Yeah. It's like
he's just up on the scene.
Nothing maybe a fan deserves to be made.
Yeah.
I don't deserve, my fandom doesn't deserve to be there.
Right.
And it plays into the long-standing frustrations that a lot of wrestling fans, smarks, if you will, always have been frustrated by Vince McMahon because he famously can't get behind anything that isn't a homegrown creation.
Yeah.
Case in point, you know, how many people have ever been rebranded from coming over from a different company? Case in point, you know, right now, like, oh yeah, that's Eli Drake. He's not. You say LA Knight.
Oh.
All right, that sounds like a game I didn't play on PS2 back in 2008, but all right.
Very true. Very true. It's just, again, I thought he was describing the evening of the event when he said his name.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what city
here. We were watching and we were like, all right, that's Eli Drake.
Yeah.
And then he mentioned something, blah, blah, blah. LA Knight is here. Like, okay, but who are you? Say who you are.
Yeah. So it's just say Eli Drake, man.
LA Knight, like
I get it. It's nighttime in LA. Now just say you're Eli Drake.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is also coming, you know, at the end of the day from Vince McMahon, who, when he got a hold of Vader, of all people, Big Van Vader, wanted to call him the Mastodon. And it took Jim Cornette, if you've ever listened to any of his psychotic,
brilliant
ramblings,
psychotics,
going like, Vince, he's Vader.
No matter how damn crazy he is.
He's known to like half of the country already, and he's big in Japan.
Yeah, Vader.
Like, you can't call. No, I want to call him the Mastodon. He's like, you can't call. We can give that to him as a nickname, but you can't rebrand him. He's too well known.
It's the same thing. I'm forgetting who was the president of WCW that wanted to make Ric Flair Spartacus, you're gonna shave your head and give
Oh,
me
those are
cream.
the Herd days,
Yeah,
like Jim Herd.
going all the way
Yeah,
back.
Jim Herd wanted to tell Ric Flair, you know, I think this whole Nature Boy thing is past us. I'd like you to shave your head and go by Spartacus, which is like, first off, to a general public of that era, is referencing a film that's already. Are we allowed to swear here? I think.
Good.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah.
Good,
Okay,
Eddie.
which
Fuck
was
yeah.
already a movie starring Kirk fucking Douglas that was like 25 fucking years old at that point.
Right?
Yeah.
But
It's crazy.
yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole we don't need to go down. But
Right.
yes, the sentiment is there. Now, bringing it back to like Chase's point, outside of WWE has made some progress on that, at least starting to acknowledge a greater world outside of its own bubble.
They don't have a choice.
Like
They
you
don't
said
have a
with
choice.
AEW, is like they acknowledge that in full because
Mhm.
the land of kayfabe has long been dead amongst fans. We do this suspension of disbelief willingly, and
Right.
we're not afraid to play around with the line of this is completely storyline, this is in character, this is all fun and games, because bring it back to WWE. Bray Wyatt shows up as the Fiend, who has never really spoken as the Fiend, as I recall, but we still can read his Twitter.
Yeah.
When he's like, "Oh, by the way,
See
happy
him
birthday!"
with his kids. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the Fiend." No, because we're fucking adults, people. We know we're here
Right.
for the story. It's
Oh yeah. That's
an athletic soap opera, and we're down for it. Just do it well. So
Exactly.
yeah, the fact that AEW is now opening this door and they're allowed to acknowledge the former histories, because at the end of the day, it's such preloaded storyline content that you don't need a writer's room for.
Easy.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much history built up across the way. At most, maybe you just have to remind fans of, oh, by the way, like 3 years ago, these dudes had a series of matches in ROH that was intense, and now they're gonna meet up again tonight.
Well, it's
All
that
you
weird
gotta do
thing
is
where
just educate people.
how you just mentioned ROH, and how it's inevitable sometimes. I mean, look at Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. They've played up that these two have a history and a rivalry, and it's been done and torn. They've done everything about it ever since they were both in NXT. But that was from Ring of Honor, and the fans knew that rivalry so strong that once these two were around each other, and went, all right, well, those two they're the Wolverine and Sabretooth. They're the
Yeah.
always be tied to each other. One's the superhero, one's the supervillain at all times, or they're inevitably going to turn on each other.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those inevitable things where you could not get away from this story where their chemistry worked so well together as ring partners that you had to have them wrestle together at some point.
Right.
Yeah, and it was even, and that's a prime example too of like WWE sitting there, or NXT rather, but of course, that's WWE, like acknowledging as part of those ongoing storylines, like, man, these guys have a history together. They trained together. They've been on the indies together before they came here to NXT. And, from a storyline perspective, that's more or less all you need to know. But the weird part is that it's flying in the face of modern day wrestling fans who have stuck with it more or less for a long time, who do know that indie history, which is just sitting there and go, can you just give us a little bit more than that? Because we're well aware.
Like, we're not.
It's not, and
Don't
outside
treat
of
us like
ROH,
thieves.
like you don't have to be worried about being sued by, Montreal indie wrestling, wherever they started. Like, these guys don't have the means to do it. Just acknowledge it. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to
Because, I mean,
rebrand like both of these guys when they came in, from El Generico and Kevin Steen to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. But you can acknowledge a little bit more than that, but because the fans already know it. So go ahead and play into it, man. It's better content.
Well, it's almost more fun for the fans to have it acknowledged, I find.
Mhm.
Or at least I think so anyways, of kind of just poking fun at that little that fourth wall.
Yeah.
We know you guys have kids. We know you're not really bitter rivals. We know you're not attacking each other in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We know Bray Wyatt takes off that mask and goes, man, that was a fun night. Okay.
Entertain us. Just entertain us.
It's one of
That's
those
what
weird
WWE
things, man, where I love thinking about the life of wrestling. I love thinking about wrestlers away from the ring. I mean, I'm not in that world at all, but I like, I do community theater. I like to throw my hat into that artistic ring. So I kind of see wrestling in that same light. And the same thing as sports. When you dedicate yourself to something at that early stages, what's life like when you're driving this distance to do like a 15-minute match? And what's the history you get from that?
Yep. It's interesting, man. It's
I lost my
impressive.
point on that. I just respect it so much, and just like the history that these guys build from their days of, hey man, I worked gymnasiums to, I worked crowds of 15 to, I worked death matches out in the fields where I took cinder blocks to the hand and crowbars to the face.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. That's who these guys are. That's their history. This is where they've traveled from. Dude, it's like me and you used to talk about the Good Brothers when they were hopping around, going, no matter what their record or career looked like when they left WWE, they were WWE tag team champions.
Either way it goes.
Like, no matter how you
several
talk
times
about
over, yeah. What?
like,
2 or
the
3?
Good Brothers in their history of wrestling are WWE tag team champions, New Japan multiple time over tag team champions, they're multiple time WWE champions, and they're one time Impact tag team champions.
Yeah.
That's a solidification of just being one of the greatest modern tag teams right now. And look how they've rebranded themselves.
Oh yeah.
Just by
They're making they I saw an article like that. They're just killing the entertainment side of it right now.
and by that's almost
They
in a way
have a
just
whiskey, they have a
erasing
wine, they have all
their
kinds of shit.
and their history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
It's
based
cool to
off
see them at this point too, because you know, depending on like what sites you follow or how much of a critic you are, but even by the time they showed up to Impact, I would say, you know, the criticism, or I don't even call it a criticism, just the observation was a little earned. It was like, I don't know, man. It seems like these boys aren't having to work like that hard, which God knows at that point they've earned it. They're helping elevate the brand of Impact by from where they've traveled, which sells itself. But now with this whole like early stages of this crossover going on too, when you've seen like their work ethic and their work rate kind of pick up, and you're like, oh, look at that. You guys are having fun again, aren't you?
They're loving it
And,
again.
and that's a fun relationship as a viewer and a fan with wrestlers too. And you're like, I don't know, man. Luke's starting to move a little bit quicker. I think he's actually having fun in there tonight.
Looks
You can
good, like man, he's
see,
fit.
you know, how much fun they're having when that's
Both of them,
about.
man, they both look like way better than they did in WWE for
Right.
sure.
And it all goes back to this, man. Like all this is because everybody is fed up with WWE.
Dude,
You know what I mean? That's what it all kind of boils back to. Like all the AEW started because WWE treated most of them like shit, and they wanted a new product to give to people. They wanted people to enjoy wrestling again. Here we go.
Yeah, they just wanted to give an alternative.
Before,
and
this
that's
is so
what
good.
it really is. But I almost feel bad. You know, we're talking about a lot of this started because all these guys are initially Bullet Club, Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, the Good Brothers. These guys are all Bullet Club. That's how this all started because they were traveled.
Yeah.
But now you have like certain members. Like I feel bad for like Finn Balor, who I feels like the guy off on an island watching his friends have all the fun.
Right.
And he's just like, yeah, he's world champion NXT, and he is like the quintessential NXT champion. He has a lot of stoic history, a mediocre run on the main roster.
Mhm.
Good IC champion. He was the first Universal champion that he lost. You know, had to vacated the next night.
Right.
But I just feel bad for him on that idea of like, you're watching this revolution in wrestling from a distance, and I'm imagining you're comfortable and with well taken care of by a company that values you. I would hope they value him, but it has to suck when you just watch your friends over there off in the corner revolutionize wrestling.
Right.
And
Got to sting a little bit. It's got to.
And it's like, Hank, I know you told me that was Kenny Omega's big objective for quite some time, was just like to get wrestling back into a sense of the territory days. And in a way, that's what it is.
Yeah. He's talked about it a lot in interviews certainly when AEW first came up, a year and a half ago.
Look how quick
that was, because certainly he had that opportunity to leave New Japan and go WWE, and he had been talked about that he was well offered, but of course this opportunity rose up. But it's interesting now because with what AEW is doing, you've got Tony Khan, who's again a fan. He is a lifelong fan, and he's head booker, and he has a knowledge extending this, and he has the business savvy to make it work. But then bringing in the boys, as it were, with these game changers that are the Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody Rhodes, more or less all whom have very completely different philosophies about the business itself, even though they obviously see eye to eye. Cody is the son of Dusty. He has a very hardcore Southern NWA throwback mentality to the way that storyline should be built and the way that they should work. The Bucks got themselves over completely independent of ever having to set foot in a ring with WWE. They did it all on their own. And, you know, when, you know, older fans or older wrestlers will sit there and critique of wrestling being too spotty these days, it's all spot fest. Well, the Bucks, yes, I've kind of led the charge on that. And guess what? It's amazing and entertaining as hell.
And
then there's Kenny, who gets way over as being a, let me not butcher the term, Gaijin, and
Gaijin, yeah.
Gaijin, which of course is the foreign heel and Japanese wrestling, which means, you know, white dude. But he's not afraid of the comedic, completely silly, again, break the fourth wall, disbelief is completely suspended style of wrestling that he picked up in DDT. And all these guys are here now in this right circumstance at the right time. And they all are boys and they know how they want, because Cody's been in WWE. He knows how that system works. He knows the stagnancy of being stuck within creative hell, development hell, a room of writers, all that you can pitch to, and there might be 20 or 30 of them, but all the things stop with Vince and whatever his convoluted ideas are. And they all have their ideas about, this is what we want to do, and this is how we change it, and this is how we take all the elements about what we as wrestling fans love, which is great for guys of our age. Now the guys who are essentially running the show are of our generation. And we're like, yeah, and you know, they totally speak to that, and we're getting to see this perfect storm of all of this stuff coming together at the right time, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, man. And I don't want to go back too much about what you were saying, just because me and Chase, we talked about this.
We go back and forth,
and it I don't know if it. Yes, okay, it bothers me. Okay, it bothers me. But the whole Kenny Omega, you know what I mean, and the matches, say like,
like wrestling the 8-year-old girl
with the little girl or with a broom, you know what I mean, like like that kind of stuff. I do feel does not shine a good light on a wrestling product.
And I would totally be inclined to agree with you. Like, obviously, yeah, like I would have like my line in the sand that I'm drawn. Like, am I entertained by it? Sure, as anybody would be. But at the same time,
I don't know,
there is a weird element. If I was to be introduced, because I, of course, had to find all that after Kenny Omega, because I'm first introduced to Kenny Omega's. Look at this hour-long match he put on with Okada. Look at this like level of ring work, and then dude's wrestling a broom.
Right.
Well,
Which I always loved, like when Jim Cornette always said that, like, hey, Shawn Michaels was a big old asshole in the 90s, but that dude could headline WrestleMania with a couch.
Right.
I never thought I'd see Shawn Michaels
but he
actually wrestle a sofa, though.
Yeah.
And there are some things that
like goes into Al Snow and Head almost. Think about that as a point of, here's a wrestler who was taken very seriously in the division he was in, never as the ninja character who put on the mask, whose name escapes Avatar, or as the other rocker.
Wow.
But when he showed up from ECW with Al Snow rocking Head, the mannequin Head, he was a serious threat in the hardcore division. He was one of my favorite hardcore champions, and one of my favorite matches and rivalries he had was he was in a handicap match, because it was him and Head versus Too Cool before they had the face turn. So they were still like pseudo managed by Jerry.
Yeah, that's when they were too sexy.
Oh, was that when they were too sexy at that point? Yeah. Thank you very much for that correction. But I remember it was just this strange handicap match, because whenever Head got cadded in, it was just Al Snow smacking them with it. So it was just a comedy match all the way through.
Right.
But it was all capped off with the beautiful exclamation point of Jerry Lawler tossing Brian Christopher a bottle of Head and Shoulders. And they put it on the mannequin so that the head had shoulders and they could get a 1, 2, 3 on it. And I remember watching that, and I think it was like a King of the Ring. I do not remember the show that took place on that match beautifully, because that made me laugh, and it was a beautiful bit of comedic wrestling done.
And there was an easy check for product placement that was cut by Head and Shoulders to WWE.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But, again, but I'm not even saying Al Snow is on the level of wrestler that Kenny Omega is.
Yeah.
But the ability to manage comedic wrestling in a real storytelling way is a beautiful art.
Yeah.
And
that's it's massively like a cultural difference too, because of course that took place in Japan. And I'm not saying I understand Japanese culture. I've never even been there, but I've seen commercials and I go, that is way different from anything I've ever seen here in the States.
They've had a ghost baby as a wrestler.
Yeah.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Mae Young gives birth to a hand. So take what you will, people.
Good point.
I mean,
Good
and
point.
Mark Henry's Sexual Chocolate was the dad.
Yeah. I mean, this is a weird art form we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like if David Lynch was to have done a sport, it would be professional wrestling.
And that's, and therein lies the beauty of what we love as fans, that we can sit there and draw a line in the sand between, I don't want a dude wrestling a broom any more than I want a geriatric woman giving birth to a hand. But all of these things, you don't bat an eye at when you're a wrestling fan. You're like, yeah, it happens.
Right.
Sometimes it does.
Because
Just like all the shit that's just laying under the wrestling rings all the time.
No shortage of variety, that's for sure.
For every Mae Young's hand, there's a wonderful trilogy of matches like Ric Flair and Steamboat. For every Omega versus a broom, there's a Brett versus Shawn. For as weird and as low as an art form as wrestling can appear as, there is a peak that it can achieve, like any form.
That pendulum swings at equal heights in both directions.
Very quickly.
For sure. So we've established, the Forbidden Door being opened and everything with Thunder Rosa and Kenta and the Good Brothers and all this, the Private Party crossing over.
What we're building.
What's some of the story? Where do you see some of these storylines and stuff going?
Well, right now we have Ibushi as world champion of New Japan, and we have Kenny as world champion of AEW, and together they are the Golden Lovers. So I feel like at some point we're building this colossal.
Yeah, that would certainly be the hope.
World champion.
And it just feels like, again, when you have all these built-in storylines, that's a natural way to go.
That's fantasy booking to like the nth degree, though. Like that's me cheat coding almost.
Yeah, and we're so early into this too. Like, of course, it's fun and it's excitable to sit there and talk about fantasy booking, which is what we're here to do. Because what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
But I'm really as interested as I am to see like all these characters cross over from different promotions and universes, as it were. I'm equally as interested to see how the balance is struck, because again, at the end of the day, Tony Khan and AEW have the money. New Japan are doing their own thing because they own their own market over there. They're just trying to expand more to US popularity. But there is always that, there's the balance of a brand and a promotion too. Like you can't have New Japan and all of AEW, bigger companies and better funded that they are, coming and completely like squash the Impact roster. There has to be that balance that they all reach, and we all know the politics that naturally go into it because it's just business, which you can catch in interviews with Cody Rhodes, and he's been very upfront about that. Like, hey man, we all want to make this as creative as possible, but so far so good. Everyone's like balances we all seem to be on the same page, but everyone knows when they're allowed to say, I can't have one of my guys take that loss. I can't have this character take that loss, as much as you can have.
To go back to and quote him, man, I know Jim Cornette I've caught him on his podcast once saying, what happens when you sign all the best wrestlers in the world? Well, someone has to be the one who takes the pen.
Somebody has to take the pen.
You have all the best wrestlers in the world, but at some point, one of them some of them have to be the losers.
Or, I don't mean to keep like knocking them, but it's the current WWE product.
50-50 booking.
That roster is got so much damn talent on it, and yet you're like, somebody's got to lose, man.
Right.
And they're all ridiculously good for the most part.
Well, no, they split it up in awful 50-50 booking, man. Like what happened? All right, so Raquel Gonzalez and I'm getting off subject right now, so I'm sorry about that, but tangenting, damn it. So Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai, they win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Championship. They beat Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon in a really awesome match that kicked off Takeover Vengeance Day.
Yeah.
We get to the following Wednesday, and what happens? Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon pick up the win again over them in a roll-up victory when they get distracted, and you're like,
Yeah.
This is the team that's going to go challenge the tag team champions.
Yeah. How do you build?
Tag team champions more than likely at WrestleMania, and you have them take a loss instead of build them up as a threat.
Right.
This is part of the problem with that. This is why I complain about that company.
Yeah.
And friend to NXT too, and that bugs me.
You know, that's why you have to have hope, because that's the inherent trap that certainly AEW and New Japan and Impact and any of these cross promotions can fall into, is that you have to find that balance. And I'm just a fan. I have my own thoughts about it, but I don't know how you begin to make that balance work outside of having those people in the room who are at least having the discussion of, we're going to find a way to keep this even and as beneficial to everyone on the whole.
As you can sit here and just fantasy book, as we are, I'm really excited for again, Kenta wasn't the big star that you would have thought of to break this out with, but it was the idea that excited me of like, hey, here's a Bullet Club member, here's someone who's aiming for Jon Moxley. There's the history to tie him with Kenny Omega with being Bullet Club, but they were of different generations of going, hey man, we're part of the same game, but we don't really know each other. It's out of mutual respect for what we stand for, that I'm not attacking you. I'm not here for you. I'm just not attacking you.
Okay.
Don't
that
forget.
general idea too of like, hey man, if the mid-carder is showing up, one of the top of the card boys going to show up. It's always, that little
Well, no.
kernel
Like
that gets
you're
dropped.
saying,
Like, hopefully that's what we can get to.
well, no, like you're saying, though, I think it's really great that you had Jon Moxley, who was the US IWGP US champion. They've not mentioned that as he was a AEW World Champion.
Yeah,
Now-
I totally forgot that dude was still holding the
Yeah,
US.
but now he's
New
flaunting
Japan
that belt.
strap.
But now he's flaunting the belt. Only to, I imagine he's going to lose it to Kenta, since he
Yeah.
is all the time. He's a full-time AEW star.
Right.
If that's how they book it, and I'm not trying to like foresee the future, and I'm not trying to like, knock on wood, jinx the whole storyline by saying this out loud. But if Kenta was to beat Jon Moxley for that belt, that makes Kenta a bigger star in the American market going forward. That they're trying to do of going, hey, this guy beat the former world champion of AEW,
And it doesn't hurt Moxley's stock one bit.
Hurt him at all.
no, because
So
in
again,
wrestling,
those bits
you
of like
can
that
lose.
balance, that booking works. That makes all
Yeah.
the sense in the world.
And
It's
you
not
just-
going to hurt Moxley. It's just going to raise Kenta up. That's what we're here to do.
yeah.
Moxley is proven. He's established. And
in Japan, home base New Japan, Kenta could be lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
of this world title feud of like
who was very, very popular before he left for WWE, and
Yeah.
it just didn't work out. And now he's back, and you need to rebuild that credibility with him and that fanfare and love that he has there with that home base.
absolutely, and I think you should do that, but also make the new market over here, because you do have you have a Star and Evil that's over there in the home base.
Mhm.
Switchblade,
I like Evil also.
Switchblade Jay White is still a huge star over there, and they're making those bones. Okada, he is the new ace.
Okada is Flair, man.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, not stature. Boy's young, but I've made that comparison before. So far as like young talent, dude has not varied up in the years I've been watching him now since Wrestle Kingdom 11. Has not varied his style at all. Like you can see, like I mean, granted, he's got more of a variety of a moveset than Flair ever did, but the dude can sit there and be an Iron Man, go an hour. And he just makes everybody look good, win or lose, and it never hurts him
Doesn't bother him
whatsoever.
at all.
And it's that Ric Flair quality, you know, when Nature Boy used to travel around the territories, man, and go to like, yeah, I'm gonna go down there to like Stone Mountain, Georgia wrestling. All right, who's your champ here? He might not take the title off of me, but I'm gonna make him look good for 45 minutes.
Exactly.
You know, all that kind of thing. That's what Okada
Matter of fact, right now I'm watching a match with Mid-South Wrestling, him and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You know what
Nice.
I mean? In Mid-South from 1985. You know
and just
what I
on
mean?
the
And
things, I think by
that's what they used to do.
I
Yeah.
would say by the end of
That's what it was.
2021, maybe early 2022, we could see a triple threat match between all three major minus, and I'm not speaking WWE.
All three champs like Impact,
Impact, New
AEW,
Japan, and AEW, and it's Young Bucks versus Good Brothers versus Gorillas of Destiny.
Yeah.
I would.
Which it could happen, and because
Yeah.
they're talking shit on Twitter, on social media and stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
You can drum it all up. That's free promotion at the fingertips of all the participants involved to drum it up before you just get to, and again, you can reach this point where we do enough cross promotion and it's fun before we get to, as Chase well knows, it's a Titan clash.
Yeah.
Is all that it is. In my fictional world of WWE 2K19 that I created, where Chase and I have multiple fictional characters and organizations.
I can't wait to come and see this.
Yeah, there's just a giant
D&D,
there's just a giant cross promotional show that I called Titan Clash, and I was like, oh, hopefully that's what we're building to, which is not unlike where AEW started with All In.
All In.
That's what it was.
Like, we could have another All In.
Pure night of people from different promotions, and that was so fan driven. And if you can reach that, gosh, I'm going back a couple minutes because we get so energetic and
good
stuff because we're friends.
That's the magic of effing wrestling, man.
When you first
go, man.
question JR of like, where do you see this going? I was like, as far as it can go, but I would really just hope that we can have all this fun and storylines, but just give me like another All In night. If nothing else, give me a night where all these promotions can come together once a year, completely irregardless of their own storylines. Talk to all the boys and all the promotions, because you get to hear all the scuttlebutt back and forth, and these guys like, man, I'd love to work with that dude one day. I'd love to work with that dude one day.
Yeah.
Well, there's one night or one weekend out of the year can be like, yo, Moxley, I don't know, you want to work Chris Bay? He says he's interested. Yeah, man, let's do it. Well, this show is coming up where it's completely, it doesn't have to have anything to do with the current storylines or canon of the promotions. Just get them together because it's all for the fans, and the fans win.
Absolutely, man.
Exactly.
It's and that's what it should all be about: the fans winning, the ultimate payday for the wrestlers, and the fans winning the
Dude,
night of entertainment.
If you can sell out Chicago the way that All In sold it out as quickly as they did, like the boys can get paid.
11 minutes,
and they'll put on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
Boys and the girls.
11 minutes, I think it was. Wasn't it 11 minutes? I think it sold it out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It wasn't even 15.
Fucking crazy.
And
that's
revolutionary.
That's like half of a break of what I get at work.
Right. And WWE
so
brought it on themselves. They brought it on their own, right? WWE, like Vince, he's gotta. Do you think? All right, sorry, Chase. Before you got going,
No.
Do y'all think, Chase? I'll start with you. Do you think that Vince or WWE will ever open that forbidden door?
I certainly would like to think. I don't think Vince McMahon will. You know what I mean? I think if he won't even let wrestlers keep their names when they come to his promotion, I don't think he's certainly going to let his wrestlers do an exhibition match with other companies without the guarantee that, okay, we'll do it. We're winning the night, right? Like, we're winning every single match. I don't even think we would go that far.
The first fucking names he gives them.
Yeah, I don't even think he would do that. No, I don't think Vince McMahon would allow him to do that. I think that would be an admission to losing. And
would Vince McMahon or Triple H in NXT do it?
I think Triple H would. I absolutely think Triple H would, but he knows what's best for business. He comes from the ranks.
Right.
He's worked his way up. He understands, but again, he knows what's best for business. Look how he runs NXT.
True.
And I think he would get that. Hey, NXT benefits from that. I think he would get WWE benefits from that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think, Hank?
Yeah, it's like, I'm not a business major. I don't know how it works, but I know that WWE is a publicly traded company.
Right.
So they have a little bit more windfall with, what they can put up with so far as like loss of numbers and shit like that, because they're working on like sponsorships and ads, as all businesses. Right. But I agree with Chase. I was like, I don't know that Vince would. I think he could. I mean, he could maybe begrudgingly get to it, but will his ego allow him to go? This is essentially too strong of a concession. Right. Paul Levesque seems to have a greater finger on the pulse for where wrestling is, as we saw what NXT was doing it when it was completely under his creative control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And good old days.
Again, I'll never say never, as we know as like wrestling fans, that's what all
Can't say that,
wrestlers
yeah.
say. But it's that level of, could it ever happen? If business dictates it to be so, publicly traded or not, if USA or whoever their shareholders are coming in and going, look, man, you got to do something because it's not worth our investment anymore. They'll sit there and go, well, you know how we could pop those ratings up again.
Right.
Let's somebody call Tony.
and it's not what we want, man. I mean, it's what we want, but you didn't
Just go, hey, Tony, baby, what's going on?
Question. Would he call Tony Khan per se, or would he go more Impact or New Japan? Would he go AEW?
That's probably actually a better question. Would WWE, if they had to, would they go to AEW first?
Right.
Would they maybe explore another avenue?
Right.
Well, it's one of those things where it all ties together. Where
time and place and business, but Vince was holding up Paul Heyman and ECW for a while, just being Northeastern promotions.
Yeah, true.
And he funded. He was paying for ECW for a while. So yeah, that's probably actually a far more interesting question. It's like, is he going to call Tony first, or is he going to call somebody else?
Interesting. What you think, Chase?
MLW, and get Jacob Fatu to show up.
Dude, man, that's like and form the.
Think about that. It's my table, Roman. I'd buy that.
They'd fight for the head of the bloodline, and Jacob win.
Come on. Come on. It's Jacob Fatu. He's when that guy walks out, I buy it.
Yeah.
Jacob Fatu
sit there and have a good old Jim Ross quoted slobber knocker, and then and then Jacob Fatu and the Usos can all go out, get drunk and arrested together, and we'd all get to see it on our dirt sheets the next day.
Because that would happen.
Because it would happen.
They both have. It's on the records.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Would Jeff Hardy go with them?
Yeah, the Usos, Jacob Fatu, and Naomi. Dear God.
Yeah.
That's like the Survivor Series team I want in a bar brawl.
Damn right. You damn right.
Give me all of them.
So our with all these options open around, are there any dream matches that you'd like to see? Are there any two people from different federations you would like just to build from? Because right now, I'll start.
Start it off.
So we have Pac at AEW. I think it's just one of the most vicious cruiserweights. That's not a cruiserweight. I don't want to call him a short guy. Doesn't kill me, but he's just a stocky.
Not short, just a little guy. Just because he's under 205.
Yeah, he's the cruiserweight. If anyone was ever going to take the name from or salvage the name from Chris Benoit of the Ravage Wolverine, it'd be Neville for me, or not Neville. It'd be Pac.
Right.
But I'd want to see him do all of his cruiserweight flippy stuff against Will Ospreay. I mean, that would just be a vicious, fast-paced, quick, submission-heavy. They're both British guys, so there's a brawler style that mixes in with their high-flying style.
Yeah.
I would just love to see them tear it up for like 20 minutes and just to see what they threw out and how they would reverse each other thing. I mean, I love the fact that Pat rocks the Reign of Saturn. Or I don't know what I forget what he calls
Brutalizer.
it. Brutalizer. I know that the Reign of Saturn, but Brutalizer.
Right.
Is just such a vicious lock-in, and I would love to see what Will Ospreay could do to try to like reverse that, get out of that.
Yeah.
We just for fantasy booking, I think it'd be really cool if you could actually have Will Ospreay somehow like spring up with him within it and reverse it to like a Samoan Slam or something. But that's just one of those matches I think the possibility is there for now.
I'm trying to think, man. Go ahead, Hank. Do you have one? Well, I can't think of.
Oh man, yeah.
Right off top. I mean, there's so many. But
I didn't think of it until about like 20 minutes before we recorded, and I'll build up to it because it's not even a match.
Okay.
So there are the fun ones out there. Like if you have even just like Googled this or you followed like any wrestling sites, there are some built-in storylines that are there. Like Chase already mentioned, Ibushi and Omega makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Everyone would love to see Young Bucks and Motor City Machine Guns go at it.
That'd be cool.
Sadly, until I forgot his name from the North left, everyone wanted to see the North versus FTR.
Right.
I'd love to have seen things like Jay White versus Pac. I thought that would be an awesome match. But list on and on and on. Like, it all goes somewhere. again, why I don't want all of this like crowning culmination. I hope that it just builds long enough to where we have like true audiences and crowds back again, because you can't deny that.
I mean, that's going to be amazing. Just pop.
This is like my old school kid deep cut of when I realized, you know what I really just want to see, because it's not a match. I just want to see those two like stare each other down in a ring again, just to have the crowd pop. Because we got Sting in AEW. And the dude just took a power bomb last night, and that's promising, but I'm not saying anybody needs to touch. I want to see Sting come face to face with the great Muta one more time. Because also, I'm such a hardcore. Those two guys are in my top 10 of favorite wrestlers ever. And Muta, who is not really retired anyways, like I don't even want to see those dudes lock up at this age. I just want to see them stare each other down. Maybe have a handshake.
Yeah.
But Muta
would make a great sign for AEW.
And Muta was at full gear and was one of the 3 guest judges for the Cody Chris Jericho match in case it went to a draw. And he's more or less a free agent. Yeah. He's like signed to Pro Wrestling Noah right now. But I just want to see. I want to see.
Don't do that.
One of the first VHSs I ever watched out of WCW was Muta and the Stinger facing off. And I just want to see Stinger and Muta come face to face again. Maybe it's like a head nod. Maybe it's just like the vet recognizes rep. Give each other a handshake.
This would be a fun
possibility. Other people, but I just want those two to stare down just to listen to the crowd doing the holy shit. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And I realized that about 20 minutes before we went on. I was like, that would be like my fanboy wrestling boner, and I'd die happy. That's all. I don't even want to see a match. I don't
even know if I could come up with one better than that. I don't think I can.
You guys help me build this right now,
because Great Muta just.
Dude, he's one of your favorites.
Muta and Surfer Sting, are two
yes.
of my favorites, like for sure.
Yes. That's all I want to see. I want to see Stinger and Muta meet up again and just kind of look at each other and go, all right.
Muta grab his neck like he's about to spit in his face.
He might do it. He might do it.
Spit, he might not.
He might throw the mist.
Have Sting match him with the baseball bat under his chin.
Sting goes to the bat under the chin. The Muta's just maybe like, here's a handshake, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, that just like that honorable moment. Yeah.
Good to see you again, Old Blood. Yeah, I want to see my Old Blood standing in the ring.
I mean, they love to bring in the vets to be managers.
Yeah.
Like Muta could.
Like I said, and you could have fun. Like they could be cornermen. Muta could back anybody you want to throw at Darby right now because Sting's backing him. But whatever you want to do with that, just give me Sting and Muta in a ring having a moment of, man, remember when?
So it's like the same thing when you got the Brainbusters bat together.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I just went too hard there, but that was the one I was like, nah, that's all I want to see. I realized even when you asked that prompt, I was like, I could talk about this. All I want to see out of this, 2 55-year-old men staring each other down, going, man, we tore it up back in the day. Good to see you again. You too.
That stare down is better than seeing Goldberg in the ring.
Absolutely.
Which I loved Goldberg back in the day.
The narrative's them not trying to be champions. It's them selling the lore of look who they are, not look what I can do. You know what I mean?
Like, I'm here to be a fucking champion.
Yeah. I mean, we covered this when we talk about Royal Rumble, man, with Edge coming back and going, look how this is just burying everyone that like a near 50-year-old is competing, going, I'm going to threaten all your champions. Well, that shouldn't really be a threat, but.
Yeah, it's like that element is like, man, there's goodwill there because you didn't get to go out the way that you wanted to. You didn't even get to come back the way you wanted to when you did it almost a year ago. So we're all here for it. But in the long game, for a company that's built around like, we got to create new stars. Well, then create some new fucking stars, guys.
Yeah.
But that, again, gets besides the point. Another, I don't even know what it would be. Another fun one I thought of is if you can get Arn and Tully backing a 6-person intergender tag match. Put FTR and introduce Tessa Blanchard even for one night and have them go up against another tag team and another woman of any combo. I was like, just to see Arn and Tessa and Tully and FTR. It's like that'd be a fun visual.
Well, it's fun you mentioned the FTR and Arn, man, and Tully, because it's one of those fun things to think about is when you build this international vibe, you should almost build an international company spanning horsemen.
Mhm.
I mean, so if you had to build like a horseman style group out of all these different,
Oh man, that's probably like a whole other episode.
Oh, and
We have one. We've done it
Sure,
before.
but
We
that's a
can do it
fun
again
thought too.
eventually.
Again, when you can just like, hey, at the right
Because
time,
We got to
horsemen
do
come
it
together.
again because that was a fun episode.
because who doesn't want to see?
Yes, Naito, give it to me.
I mean, Naito as a horseman just would make me so happy and all that,
Too
right?
much.
Because
That's
like,
too much.
you know, and me and you talk about this a lot. I would love to see the horseman just be the like, almost like the crime lord, not the crime lord, like the bosses of like, hey, I keep my company in check, you keep your company in check, you keep your company in check, and whenever
A
there's
little
like,
bit of like an Illuminati across brands. Like these
Yeah.
representatives from the society come together.
Right.
Like, yo, horseman, we need to
Exactly.
talk. Everybody get together.
yeah,
Get
and it's
on
just
the
one of those things where
track.
each person has their one member. Because I almost wonder like Cody Rhodes would be a great, like Naito, Cody Rhodes would be a great representative just because he rocks the suits. He lives that dusty, larger than lifestyle. Nick Aldis would be really cool to bring in for an NWA correspondent.
Ooh, and you know
Yeah,
who I'd want
also
from like
still
Impact?
the
I
world
want
title.
Moose.
The 10 pounds of gold.
Moose.
Give me Moose from Impact.
Give me
He looks
Moose.
good in a suit. With a
Yeah.
belt. He looks good. in a
Man,
suit with a belt.
that's an entire different subject, but Keith Lee was like my go-to hero, and then you just
I ruined that,
picked
no.
him, like white
That's
solid
Hank.
white suit and Kingpin Keith Lee,
How
and now
about
it's
that,
like,
Hank?
oh, done. Now he just needs to do the hurt business.
Look,
I
That's-
remember
I
us talking
did.
about that. I was like, oh yeah, you can see it.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
man. That'd be beautiful.
That's another one I just thought of too. Moose versus Moose by their size alone. Moose and Brian Cage would be a fun matchup. Just
That'd
see
be a
the,
good one. Moose
be
and
the big
Brian
slap.
I
Lashley.
think in Impact they had some really. I think they had.
yeah,
that.
they already did. Yeah, to bring
Yeah.
that back.
Okay.
I realized too that a fun matchup, they're not quite the same. I mean, Naito can get aggressive when he wants to. Don't you just want to kind of see what happens when Naito and Orange Cassidy meet? Like these two uber laid back
Wow.
guys? Are they just
Oh,
gonna
that would be
like,
fun.
again, it does not a match. You just need that backstage segment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there's Naito with his hat. And there's Orange just giving him the lazy thumb, kind of going,
that would be
all right, yeah.
hilarious.
I would actually like
I
to
feel
see
like we can get
one
together
take
and
the
smoke
glasses,
later. I
like
think it'd
Naito
be
takes
cool.
the glasses and Cassidy takes the
Yeah,
hat.
maybe they
Yeah,
trade
yeah,
off.
yeah.
Like trade and then like walk away from one another.
Like,
I'd like to
hey,
see that moment.
yeah, we'll get a like not that you need a translator. It's like me and you, we're gonna smoke up later. We'll be all right.
Yeah, this would be fun.
We are gonna get so
I mean, I'm ready for FTR versus the Good Brothers. That's gonna be a fun
that's gonna
tag
be
team
good.
match.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be good. It's
Um,
amazing, man. Like again, like this whole episode being about the forbidden door and the open and everything. The possibilities are endless, man.
yeah, dude. And we're heading back to like what it feels like the territory days, where no one's gonna feel like.
Yeah.
And again, once this global bastard damnable plague lifts and people can just travel more, who knows what it
Yeah.
could look like.
Yeah. Like,
You know what I mean?
Like
Just-
you said earlier, man,
yeah.
it's rising tide lifts all ships, and as it should be.
Right.
That's where the business was again, and it's not to say it can't come back to some semblance of that, even as we've evolved to what we have. But yeah, beyond that forbidden door is just kind of like an infinite hallway, man, with all kinds of rooms and views to poke your head in.
Well, it's like what you're saying, man. Look what happened to wrestling with 20 years of no competition and how stagnant WWE feels, where there's no stars that, I mean, their biggest pops come from. I mean, Ric Flair still shows up, and that's one of the biggest pops they get, I feel. And
Yeah, it was like 10 years of WWE, which equated to 12 years of John Cena. I mean, that's what it was. Occasional appearances by Randy Orton, Triple H, and Dave Batista.
And so it actually feels like we're trying to build and raise things up from
Yeah.
that, or at least wrestling is.
Yeah,
And even on the
it's an
indies,
exciting time.
it is.
It is, man.
Totally is.
It is.
And we're
Um,
only right here at the beginning.
right.
This is
right.
this is like, this is what is it
It's
like that
amazing.
it's like Cosmos show that Neil deGrasse and Carl Sagan back in the day. He's like, oh man, humanity has been here. If you look at it like a calendar, we've been here for like the last like 30 seconds of the end of the year. It's like we're right, and it's like, man, we're just in like the first 30 seconds of like of January 1st on that calendar of
Oh yeah.
wrestling wise. It's all about to bust wide open.
Well, when we did the introduction, we first kicked this whole thing off, however long ago that was. One of the things I mentioned is this is like the MCU moment for wrestling, where it just kind of feels like everyone pops around, and as you've seen how early are, this is almost the bit where if Nick Fury's not just showing up at the end of Iron Man, we might just be finding Thor's hammer in the desert, and it's this magical moment of, dude, who knows where this could lead?
Yeah.
Who knows what we could watch? And it's not years of going, hey, their contract's up in 3 years. Maybe in 3 years, if they're not injured, maybe in 3 years they don't retire. Maybe in 3 years, if this I want to see them wrestle still with that company I want to see them with, I'll be able to see this match.
Yep, exactly.
It could be this free for all.
It's all possible.
It's magic.
Times.
Effing wrestling.
Excellent. Effing wrestling.
Effing wrestling.
Yo, real quick. We've been going a little over an hour or so let's go ahead and wrap this up real quick. We got Elimination Chamber coming up, right?
That's right. Elimination Chamber Sunday. Sunday.
So let's get quick predictions. Just quick predictions here. Chase, we'll just go down. We'll start with you. Who you think is going to win the
Can you read the match off to me? I don't have it in front of me.
WWE Championship? We got Drew, AJ, Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, Sheamus, and Kofi. Who's going to win that?
I think Drew is going to retain.
Okay.
I think Drew's going to retain with an addendum real quick. I think this is going to be a funny thing I want to add in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this for the Universal titles. I think Roman's pretty locked in. I think this can work for Drew and the world. I think it's going to be a hell of a match. Elimination Chambers are always cool. I think there's going to be some great bits. I think it's going to come down between Drew and Kofi. Does going to build that Kofi Mania thing again, only for Drew to retain. And that's when The Miz is going to cash in.
Wow.
And The Miz is going to hit the skull-crushing finale, and he's going to get the 1, 2, 3, and it's going to be this moment where he lifts the belt up, and everyone's really upset, and everyone just is sad. And The Miz has won the world title.
Okay.
For Monday Night Raw to come, and who's the new figurehead? Adam Pearce shows up to just pull up the contract with The Miz celebrating on Miz TV with John Morrison and the belt to go, it expired. That didn't count as a world title match. There was nothing for you to cash in. Your contract had expired. So I need you to give me that belt back.
Wow.
And now I think that's just, they've wasted the Money in the Bank contract for me.
It's useless right now, right?
It's useless. So I think that's like the best way to keep it a gimmick and get rid of it is, hey, it expired. Miz, you did it. You did it. You cashed in. You did what it's the point for. And it's a moment. It's a moment for the shit heel Miz to win. And WWE is only about the moment. Right. And it's a moment for Elimination Chamber. Only for a great comedic bit going, hey, Miz, really good job, champ. You did exactly what you were supposed to. Yeah, I did. It didn't count. This thing expired. This coupon has expired. You need to give it back to him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Drew. I call Drew a lock.
I think so too. I don't think there's going to be really any.
We're being pressed for time. Are we just doing the quick fire run down the card?
Yeah. So I'll say Drew also.
Yeah, Drew.
So next we got Asuka, Lacey. Asuka versus Lacey.
Asuka. I think they just announced that Lacey Evans is pregnant.
Yeah,
so she's alive. So
subbed out with someone, but there's no reason to take it off of Asuka, or no reason for Asuka to go.
Yeah, something to go Asuka.
Triple threat for the U.S. title: Bobby Lashley, Keith Lee, Riddle.
I've heard they might drop Lee. I don't know if he might be there due to some.
Really?
I don't know. I've heard.
I don't know. They like to throw that title around so much. So who's to even say? I think we've got about an even guess as any. I'm going to go with Lashley retaining.
Yeah, that would be my guess. Lashley retaining.
Like him holding it right now.
I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to go with Riddle just because I think they're going to get the belt off Lashley to give him a major title.
Good for Matt.
I look forward to our conveson on Monday when we review the show, JR. Because I'll go Lashley, you go Riddle, and now we can argue.
There we go, baby. So this is interesting. So Elimination Chamber match for WWE Universal Championship later that night. And it's Jey Uso, Kevin Owens, King Corbin, baby, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, and Daniel Bryan. Who do you think?
I got Cesaro.
I think
this
Cesaro
is a great
also.
way. Yeah, I think this is a great way for WWE to answer the fans of just going, hey, man, we're going to finally give him a world title shot because no one needs to beat Roman. Right. But it finally gives Cesaro that shot at the world title. It makes him like an Iron Man to you survived the Elimination Chamber to go take on Roman Reigns. It character builds.
I can only Chase knows that I'm a big fan of Cesaro and his work. I would just hope it's Cesaro since they're giving him a slight bit of a rub right now.
Right? Why not? Right?
I could totally see them not doing. I
I can totally see him not doing it. Yeah.
I can see him right there to take it. Danny Bryan,
Cesaro, he makes sense right now too.
But Cesaro would just be this such the feel good story. Even
it's a
fan favorite, and it makes sense to throw him to Roman. He gets a rub off of going toe to toe with Roman because his work rate is always good. So that makes sense.
Heyman guy,
but
there's that
WWE's never been accused of sensible booking.
Right.
But no, I think that's it, man. I think Cesaro is just going to have a really good 1-episode arc. That's what that feels like. This feels like his. If this was a long,
we'll give it to him a little bit, and then
he's going to go surfing with Shinsuke again, going, "What happened? I don't know, man."
So
I don't know.
If you could win Emmys for wrestling, Cesaro would win the Emmy for Elimination Chamber if he goes the distance. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is his episode.
It'd be good.
It'd be good.
So is there any more matches, or is that the card?
No, that's it. That's the card.
Then Roman Reigns will kick the shit out of whoever goes to that match because
that last match
then Roman Reigns is gonna beat the hell out of somebody.
Yeah.
And
unless he gets handcuffed
and his cousin for good measure.
Good point.
He's gonna beat whoever it is with an Uso.
Yeah.
Just gonna grab him by the ankles and swing for the fences.
Hell yeah, Hank, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Well,
again,
give a shout out to your podcast, buddy.
Do it again. Yeah, plug it.
Well, yeah, Penny Stinkers. You can listen to us wherever podcasts are available. And yeah, it's been awesome being here, guys. Thanks for having me on. We'll be doing this damn thing again soon.
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll hopefully come on Penny Stinkers one time and talk about a wrestling movie.
Yeah, no, we've got we're trying to open a couple doors in our own umbrella here in this world. So everybody stay tuned. We've got fun stuff coming up.
One big crossing universe.
Just give me Sting and Muda. That's all I ask. Sting and Muda.
Sting and Muda. We put it out into the universe.
Everybody, Hank, thanks for joining us. That's Chase. I'm JR.